During a child custody hearing, therapy dog Bella kept approaching 7-year-old Emma with urgent alerts. When Judge Williams took the dog's behavior seriously, the shocking truth behind Bella's persistent warnings would stun everyone in the courtroom. The atmosphere in Courtroom 3 of the Marion County Family Court was thick with tension on this crisp Tuesday morning in October. The ornate wooden benches were filled with attorneys, social workers, and family members all waiting for what would be the final hearing in the custody case of Emma Peterson, a 7-year-old girl whose future hung in the balance. Judge Patricia Williams, with her 25 years of experience on the family court bench, had presided over countless custody disputes. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her dark eyes held the wisdom and compassion that came from years of making decisions that would shape children's lives forever. She understood better than most that these cases required not just legal expertise, but genuine concern for the well-being of the most vulnerable individuals involved. Today's case involved Emma Peterson, a quiet 7-year-old with auburn hair and large brown eyes that seemed to hold far too much sadness for someone her age. She sat between her parents in the front row, occasionally glancing nervously between her mother Sarah and her father Michael, as if trying to gauge which parent she should please at any given moment. Sarah Peterson, 34, worked as a registered nurse at Marion General Hospital. She was dressed professionally in a navy blue suit, her blonde hair neatly styled, though the stress of the prolonged custody battle was evident in the dark circles under her eyes and the way her hands trembled slightly as she organized her legal documents. Michael Peterson, 38, was a successful commercial real estate developer who carried himself with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting his way. His expensive charcoal gray suit and polished shoes spoke to his financial success, and he sat with the relaxed posture of someone who believed the outcome was already in his favor. But there was someone else in the courtroom that day who would prove to be the most important participant of all, Bella, a 4-year-old golden retriever who served as the court's therapy dog. With her beautiful golden coat and gentle brown eyes, Bella had been specially trained to provide emotional support to children during particularly traumatic or stressful legal proceedings. Bella's presence in the courtroom was relatively new to the Marion County system. The therapy dog program had been implemented just 18 months earlier after several child psychologists had recommended that the emotional support of a trained animal could help children feel more comfortable when testifying or simply being present during custody hearings. As Judge Williams called the court to order, something unusual began happening that would change the course of the entire proceeding. Bella, who was normally content to lie quietly at the side of the courtroom, ready to be called upon when needed, suddenly stood up and walked directly to where Emma was sitting. This was not typical behavior for Bella. Usually, the therapy dog would wait for a specific summons from the judge or would be directed to approach a child by her handler, Court Services Officer Jennifer Martinez, who had been working with therapy animals for over 5 years. "That's interesting," Jennifer whispered to herself, watching as Bella positioned herself directly beside Emma's chair. The dog's body language was different from her usual calm, supportive demeanor. Instead, Bella seemed alert and protective, as if she had detected something that required her immediate attention. Judge Williams noticed the dog's behavior as well. "Ms. Martinez," she said quietly, "is Bella responding to something specific?" Jennifer frowned as she observed Bella's posture. "I'm not sure, Your Honor. She's definitely exhibiting protective behavior, but I can't identify what's triggering it." Emma, meanwhile, seemed to relax slightly at Bella's presence. The little girl's tense shoulders dropped a fraction, and she reached out tentatively to touch the dog's soft golden fur. Bella immediately leaned into the touch, providing the kind of comfort that only animals seem capable of offering. But as the hearing continued, Bella's behavior became even more pronounced. Every time Michael Peterson spoke or moved, the dog would shift position, always ensuring that she remained between him and Emma. It was subtle, but unmistakable to anyone who understood canine body language. "Your Honor," began Michael's attorney, Richard Sterling, a sharply dressed man with silver hair and an expensive briefcase. "My client is seeking full custody of Emma based on his superior financial resources and stable living environment. Mr. Peterson can provide Emma with educational opportunities and lifestyle advantages that will benefit her long-term development." As Sterling spoke, Bella's ears perked up, and she moved even closer to Emma, her body creating what appeared to be a protective barrier between the child and her father's side of the courtroom. Sarah's attorney, Maria Gonzalez, responded immediately. "Your Honor, while Mr. Peterson may have financial advantages, what Emma needs most is the nurturing, consistent care that only her mother can provide. Ms. Peterson has been Emma's primary caregiver throughout her life, and disrupting that bond would be detrimental to the child's emotional well-being." Throughout this exchange, Emma remained silent, but Bella's protective behavior became increasingly obvious to everyone in the courtroom. Judge Williams had been watching Bella's behavior with growing interest and concern. In her 25 years on the bench, she had learned to pay attention to subtle signs that something wasn't right, and Bella's persistent protective positioning was definitely not normal. "Mr. Peterson," Judge Williams said, addressing Emma's father directly, "can you tell the court about your relationship with Emma? How do you typically spend time together during your visitation periods?" Michael Peterson straightened in his chair, projecting confidence. "Of course, Your Honor. Emma and I have a wonderful relationship. We go to parks, museums, out for ice cream. I believe I provide her with experiences that broaden her horizons and prepare her for success in life." But as Michael spoke, something remarkable happened. Bella, who had been sitting calmly beside Emma, suddenly stood up and moved to position herself directly between Emma and her father. The dog's stance was unmistakably protective, and she remained there throughout Michael's entire statement. Emma noticed Bella's movement and whispered something too quietly for the court reporter to hear. Judge Williams leaned forward. "Emma, did you say something, sweetheart?" The little girl looked up with those large brown eyes and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper, "Bella is protecting me." The words hit the courtroom like a physical blow. Sarah Peterson's face went pale, and she looked at her daughter with sudden alarm. Michael Peterson's confident expression faltered for just a moment before he forced a smile. "Children have such vivid imaginations, Your Honor," Michael said with what was meant to sound like parental indulgence but came across as dismissive. "Emma has always been very attached to animals." But Judge Williams was not convinced. She had seen too many cases where children tried to communicate distress in indirect ways, and Bella's behavior was unlike anything she had witnessed in the months since the therapy dog program had been implemented. "Ms. Martinez," Judge Williams said to Bella's handler, "in your experience with therapy dogs, have you ever seen this type of protective behavior?" Jennifer Martinez had been working with therapy animals long enough to recognize the significance of what they were witnessing. "Your Honor, therapy dogs are trained to provide comfort and support, but they also have natural instincts to protect children they perceive to be in danger. Bella's behavior suggests she's detecting some form of threat or distress that we might not be immediately aware of." The courtroom fell silent except for the soft sound of Bella's breathing as she maintained her protective position beside Emma. Judge Williams felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Every instinct developed over her long career was telling her that Bella's behavior was not coincidental or meaningless. The dog was trying to communicate something important, and as the person responsible for Emma's welfare, she needed to investigate further. "I'm going to call a 30-minute recess," Judge Williams announced. "I'd like to speak with Emma privately in my chambers, with Ms. Martinez and Bella present." Michael Peterson's attorney immediately objected. "Your Honor, any private conversation with the child should include representation from both parents." "Mr. Sterling," Judge Williams replied firmly, "I'm conducting a preliminary welfare check based on concerning behavior I've observed. This is within my authority as the presiding judge in a custody matter involving a minor child." As the courtroom cleared for recess, Bella remained close to Emma, and Judge Williams noticed that the dog seemed reluctant to allow the child to be near her father even for the brief moment it took to transition to the judge's chambers. In the quiet of her chambers, with its warm wood paneling and shelves lined with law books, Judge Williams knelt down to Emma's eye level. Bella immediately positioned herself beside the child, offering silent support. "Emma," Judge Williams said gently, "Bella seems very concerned about you today. Can you tell me why you think that might be?" Emma looked down at Bella, running her small fingers through the dog's golden fur. For several long minutes, she remained silent, and Judge Williams patiently waited, knowing that rushing a child in these circumstances could shut down communication entirely. Finally, in a voice so quiet that Judge Williams had to strain to hear, Emma spoke. "Bella knows," she whispered. "Knows what, sweetheart?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She knows that Daddy gets really angry sometimes. And when he gets angry, he hurts me." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Judge Williams felt her heart break for this little girl while simultaneously feeling anger at the situation that had brought them to this point. "Can you tell me more about that, Emma? When does your daddy get angry?" "When I don't do things right," Emma said, still whispering. "When I spill something or make noise or ask questions. He says I'm supposed to be perfect, and when I'm not, he hits me. But he tells me it's our secret, and I'm not supposed to tell Mommy or anyone else." Judge Williams knew that this revelation required immediate action, but she also understood the importance of handling the situation carefully to protect Emma and ensure that any evidence would be admissible in court. "Emma, thank you for being brave enough to tell me this," Judge Williams said softly. "You did the right thing, and I want you to know that you're safe now. Bella is going to stay with you, and I'm going to make sure that people who know how to help children are going to talk with you." Judge Williams immediately contacted Child Protective Services and arranged for Emma to be examined by a forensic interviewer trained in childhood trauma cases. She also ordered that Emma be examined by a pediatrician who specialized in detecting signs of physical abuse. While these arrangements were being made, Bella remained constantly at Emma's side, providing the emotional support that allowed the little girl to feel secure enough to continue sharing her experiences. The forensic interview, conducted by Dr. Lisa Chen, a child psychologist with 15 years of experience in abuse cases, revealed a pattern of physical and emotional abuse that had been escalating over the past several months. Emma described incidents where her father would hit her for minor infractions, threaten her if she told anyone, and create an atmosphere of fear in his home during visitation weekends. The medical examination conducted by Dr. Robert Martinez, a pediatrician certified in child abuse detection, found evidence consistent with Emma's statements, healed bruises in various stages of healing, particularly on areas of her body that would typically be covered by clothing. The physical evidence supports the child's statements, Dr. Martinez reported to Judge Williams. The pattern and location of injuries are consistent with intentional harm rather than accidental injury from normal childhood activities. Child Protective Services worker Angela Thompson, who had been assigned to Emma's case, interviewed Sarah Peterson about any signs of abuse she might have noticed. Sarah was devastated to learn what her daughter had been enduring. "I noticed that Emma seemed anxious after visits with her father," Sarah told Angela, tears streaming down her face. "She would be withdrawn and jumpy for days afterward, but Michael always had explanations. He said she was just tired from all the activities they did together, or that she was having trouble adjusting to going back and forth between homes. I never imagined. I should have known." As the investigation continued, a clearer picture emerged of what had been happening during Emma's court-ordered visitation with her father. Michael Peterson had been presenting a carefully crafted facade of the devoted father while systematically abusing his daughter and threatening her to maintain silence. Detective Sarah Williams, no relation to the judge, from the Marion County Sheriff's Department specialized in crimes against children. Her investigation revealed that Michael's abuse had begun subtly and escalated over time, following a pattern typical of family violence situations. "Mr. Peterson appears to have been very calculated in his approach," Detective Williams reported. "He would abuse Emma in ways that were unlikely to leave visible marks, and he was careful to schedule the abuse for early in the visitation period so that any bruising would fade before she returned to her mother." The investigation also uncovered Michael's history of anger management issues, including 2 incidents at his workplace where he had been disciplined for aggressive behavior towards subordinates, and a sealed juvenile record that included charges of animal cruelty. Meanwhile, Bella's role in uncovering the abuse was being studied by animal behavior specialists. Dr. Patricia Moore, a veterinary behaviorist from the State University, examined Bella and interviewed her handler Jennifer Martinez about the dog's training and typical behavior patterns. Therapy dogs are trained to provide comfort and support, but they retain their natural protective instincts, Dr. Moore explained to Judge Williams. Bella's behavior was consistent with a dog detecting fear, stress, and danger signals that humans might miss. Children who are being abused often exhibit subtle changes in body chemistry, posture, and behavior that animals can detect but that adults might attribute to other causes. The investigation revealed that Emma had been exhibiting classic signs of abuse that had been overlooked or misinterpreted by the adults in her life. Her increased anxiety after visits with her father, her reluctance to discuss what she did during their time together, and her general withdrawal had all been dismissed as normal adjustment difficulties related to the divorce. When court reconvened after a week-long investigation, the atmosphere was dramatically different. Michael Peterson now sat with his attorney at the defendant's table, facing not only the loss of custody but also criminal charges for child abuse. Judge Williams had reviewed all the evidence, Emma's statements, the medical examination results, the forensic interview, and the detective's investigation. The case was no longer about custody, it was about protecting a child from further harm. Based on the evidence presented to this court, Judge Williams began, I am finding that Michael Peterson has physically and emotionally abused his daughter Emma. I am immediately terminating all visitation rights and awarding full custody to Sarah Peterson. The judge continued, furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution, and I am issuing a restraining order prohibiting Mr. Peterson from having any contact with Emma or approaching her school, her mother's residence, or any location where she might be present. Michael Peterson's carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. As he was led away in handcuffs, he continued to maintain his innocence, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Bella, who had remained in the courtroom throughout the final hearing, seemed to understand that Emma was now safe. The dog's protective behavior relaxed, and she returned to her normal, supportive demeanor, offering comfort to Emma as the little girl watched her father being taken away. Sarah Peterson was granted immediate custody, and Emma was connected with a trauma-informed child therapist who specialized in helping children recover from family violence. The healing process would be long, but Emma was finally safe. In the weeks following the hearing, Emma began the slow process of healing from the trauma she had experienced. With the support of her mother, her therapist, and regular visits from Bella, she started to exhibit signs of the happy, carefree child she had been before the abuse began. Dr. Amanda Foster, Emma's trauma therapist, worked with both Emma and Sarah to address the psychological effects of the abuse and to help them rebuild their sense of safety and trust. Bella continued to play a role in Emma's therapy, providing comfort and support during particularly difficult sessions. Emma's connection with Bella has been crucial to her recovery, Dr. Foster explained to Sarah during one of their family therapy sessions. The dog represents safety and protection to Emma. Bella's presence helped Emma feel secure enough to disclose the abuse, and now she's helping Emma learn to trust again. The case had a profound impact on everyone involved. Judge Williams, who had seen many difficult cases during her career, was deeply moved by how Bella's instincts had protected Emma from continued abuse. If Bella hadn't detected the danger Emma was in, this abuse could have continued for years, Judge Williams reflected. Emma might never have felt safe enough to disclose what was happening, and the pattern of violence could have escalated to the point where she suffered permanent physical or psychological damage. The case also had broader implications for the family court system. The success of the therapy dog program in detecting child abuse led to expanded training for Bella and the addition of 2 more therapy dogs to the court system. Jennifer Martinez, Bella's handler, worked with animal behaviorists and child psychologists to develop protocols for recognizing and responding to protective behaviors exhibited by therapy animals in court settings. The case gained national attention as an example of how therapy animals could serve as early warning systems for child abuse in family court settings. Bella's story was featured in professional journals, legal publications, and news outlets across the country. The National Association of Family Court Judges invited Judge Williams to present Emma and Bella's case at their annual conference, where it sparked discussions about expanding the use of therapy animals in legal proceedings involving children. What we learned from Bella is that animals can detect signs of distress and danger that humans might miss, Judge Williams told the audience of judges and family court professionals. Their instincts, combined with proper training and handling, can provide an additional layer of protection for vulnerable children in our legal system. Law schools began including the case in their family law curriculum as an example of innovative approaches to child protection. The case was cited in academic papers about the intersection of animal-assisted therapy and legal proceedings. Bella herself became something of a celebrity in professional circles, though she remained focused on her work providing comfort and support to children in the court system. Her success led to requests from other jurisdictions wanting to establish their own therapy dog programs. The Marion County Family Court expanded its therapy animal program, adding 2 more dogs and implementing enhanced training protocols based on the lessons learned from Bella's detection of Emma's abuse. Michael Peterson's criminal trial took place 6 months after the custody hearing. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Robert Chen, built their case around Emma's testimony, the medical evidence, and the expert testimony about Bella's behavior. Emma, now 8 years old and significantly healthier and happier, testified via closed-circuit television with Bella by her side for emotional support. Her testimony was clear and consistent with her earlier statements, and she showed remarkable courage in facing the legal process. Dr. Martinez, the pediatrician who had examined Emma, testified about the physical evidence of abuse, while Dr. Chen, the forensic interviewer, explained how Emma's statements fit the patterns typically seen in child abuse cases. Perhaps most compellingly, Dr. Moore, the animal behaviorist, testified about Bella's behavior and what it indicated about Emma's emotional state during the custody hearing. Therapy dogs are trained to detect distress and provide comfort, Dr. Moore explained to the jury. Bella's protective behavior was consistent with detecting a child in danger. Dogs can sense fear, stress hormones, and other indicators of trauma that humans might not consciously recognize. Michael Peterson's defense argued that the dog's behavior was meaningless and that Emma had been coached by her mother, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on charges of child abuse and endangerment. Michael was sentenced to 5 years in prison and was permanently prohibited from having contact with Emma. The judge in the criminal case commended the family court system for its quick action in protecting Emma from further harm. 2 years after Bella's intervention saved her from continued abuse, Emma was thriving. Now 9 years old, she had regained much of the confidence and joy that the abuse had stolen from her. She was doing well in school, had made friends in her neighborhood, and was actively involved in activities like soccer and art classes. Bella continued to visit Emma regularly, both as part of her ongoing therapy and simply as a friend. The bond between them remained strong, and Emma often said that Bella was her hero. "Bella saved me," Emma would tell people when asked about her experience. "She knew I was scared and needed help, even when I couldn't tell anyone what was happening." Sarah Peterson had also healed significantly from the trauma of learning that her daughter had been abused under her watch. With the support of her own therapist and the knowledge that Emma was now safe, she had been able to forgive herself for not detecting the abuse earlier. "I learned that abusers are often very skilled at hiding their behavior," Sarah reflected. Michael presented himself as a loving father, and he was careful to abuse Emma in ways that wouldn't leave obvious signs. "I'm grateful that Bella was able to detect what I missed." The case had changed Sarah's perspective on animal intelligence and the important roles that animals can play in human welfare. She became an advocate for therapy animal programs and often spoke at conferences about Emma's experience. Emma's trauma therapist, Dr. Foster, reported that Emma had made remarkable progress in processing her trauma and developing healthy coping mechanisms. "Emma is a remarkably resilient child," Dr. Foster noted. The fact that the abuse was detected and stopped relatively early in the process, combined with the strong support system she has with her mother and the ongoing connection with Bella, has helped her recover in ways that might not have been possible if the abuse had continued longer. 5 years after Bella's life-saving intervention, the impact of Emma's case continued to resonate throughout the family court system. The use of therapy animals in legal proceedings involving children had expanded to over 200 jurisdictions across the United States, with many citing Emma's case as inspiration for their programs. Judge Williams, now approaching retirement after 30 years on the bench, reflected on how the case had changed her understanding of child protection and the role that animals could play in the legal system. "In all my years as a judge, I've never seen anything quite like what Bella did for Emma," Judge Williams said during a recent interview. "That dog's instincts and protective behavior saved a child from continued abuse and potentially much worse. It reminded all of us that sometimes the most important evidence comes from unexpected sources." Bella, now 9 years old and beginning to slow down slightly, remained active in the therapy dog program, though she had been joined by several younger dogs who were being trained using protocols developed from her experience with Emma. The National Center for Child Protection had funded a research study on the use of therapy animals in detecting child abuse, with Bella's case serving as the foundational example. The research confirmed that properly trained therapy animals could indeed serve as early warning systems for children in distress. Emma, now 12 years old and in middle school, had become a confident, happy young girl who spoke openly about her experience when appropriate. She had become an advocate for other children who had experienced abuse and often volunteered at events supporting therapy animal programs. "Bella taught me that it's okay to ask for help," Emma said during a presentation at a conference on child protection. "She showed me that there were adults who would listen and believe me, and that I deserved to be safe and protected." The relationship between Emma and Bella remained strong, though it had evolved as Emma grew older. Bella was no longer needed for therapy sessions, but the two remained connected through regular visits and a deep bond forged during Emma's most vulnerable time. Sarah Peterson had gone back to school to become a child advocate, using her experience with Emma's case to help other families navigate the legal system when child abuse was suspected. She often worked alongside therapy animal teams and had become a strong supporter of expanding these programs. Michael Peterson had served his 5-year sentence and was released on parole, but the restraining order preventing contact with Emma remained in place. Emma's safety continued to be the top priority, and the legal protections put in place during her case remained fully enforced. The case had also led to improvements in training for family court judges, attorneys, and social workers on recognizing signs of child abuse and understanding the potential value of therapy animal observations in legal settings. Dr. Moore, the animal behaviorist who had testified in Emma's case, established a training program for therapy animals specifically designed to work in legal environments. The program, known as the Bella Protocol, trained both animals and their handlers to recognize and respond appropriately to signs of child distress. As Emma entered her teenage years, she often reflected on how different her life might have been if Bella hadn't been in that courtroom on that crucial day. The dog's intervention had not only saved her from continued abuse but had also given her the foundation for a life of safety, confidence, and purpose. "Bella didn't just protect me that day," Emma would say. "She gave me my whole future back." The bond between a brave little girl and a protective therapy dog had created ripples that continued to protect children throughout the family court system, proving that sometimes the most important heroes walk on 4 legs and communicate through pure instinct and unconditional love. If this incredible story of Bella and Emma touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing true stories about the extraordinary bond between therapy animals and the humans they protect. These remarkable animals remind us that heroism comes in many forms, and sometimes the most important voices are those that never speak a word.